Mom left and I was left alone, Sonia sighed sadly into the phone and mysteriously added, completely alone in this huge rented apartment, in a strange city. Besides you, I don't know anyone here. Maybe we can meet up. Take a walk. No, Dennis cut her off, watching Aunt Valia's gestures. She was desperately urging her nephew to get out of bed. Frowning, pursing her lips, and upon hearing Dennis's decisive answer, she snatched the phone from his hands and stepped away at a safe distance. Sonechka, Valentina sang into the phone, why don't you come visit us? I'll pay for your taxi. Write down the address. Dennis folded his hands on his chest and closed his eyes, pretending to be dead. He really wanted to die, even just for a while, until the pain subsided. And he lay like that until Sonia arrived. He heard her lively voice behind the door and felt a horrible disgust, and a great desire to hear Anya's quiet, deep voice, which sent shivers down his spine, the voice that inspired him, lifted his spirits. Dennis? Sonia peeked into the room. She froze, waiting for him to open his eyes and look at her. Not receiving any response, Sonia entered, gently closed the door behind her and approached him. Dennis, are you sleeping? I'm sleeping, he responded dully. Sonia chuckled and sat down next to him. Then who's talking to me? Or are you, what's his name? Sleepwalking? As soon as Dennis felt her hand touch him, he abruptly opened his eyes and looked at Sonia, who flinched in surprise. And then she laughed. You scared me. Her long hair was loose and thrown over one shoulder. In the dim light of the nightlight, Sonia resembled a mythical mermaid, desperately trying to lure him into her nets. She smiled enigmatically and flirtatiously played with her fluffy eyelashes. Give me your phone, Dennis said apathetically. All these tricks didn't bother him, didn't affect him at all. But as soon as Sonia took out her phone from her bag, he got up from the bed and started pacing the room nervously, dialing Anya's number. She answered immediately as if she had been waiting for his call. Hello? Anya sounded a bit anxious. I'm listening, speak. Dennis froze by the window, unable to even say a word. Afraid that Anya, upon hearing his voice, would immediately hang up, he wanted to maintain this invisible connection for as long as possible. Hello? Anya repeated, and without waiting for a response, she hung up. Dennis gave in to the impulse and dialed her number again. This time Anya's voice was soft, muted, as if she had guessed who was on the other end of the line. Hello, she whispered. Dennis pressed his forehead against the window glass, which had fogged up from his erratic, rapid breathing. Dennis, is that you? He hung up first. Letting out a long sigh, he leaned against the windowsill with his hands. And how long are you going to keep suffering? Sonia asked, who had been behind him the whole time and could hear Anya word for word thanks to the loudspeaker. I'll figure it out, Dennis croaked. Sonia's hand immediately rested on his shoulder. She doesn't love you. And so what? He brushed her hand away, turned around and gave Sonia a contemptuous look. I love her. Got it? Me. She betrayed you. She doesn't owe me anything. I'm to blame. I didn't have the courage to take responsibility for her and the child. And this guy, he just beat me to it, that's all. Dennis caught Sonia's ecstatic, enchanted gaze, realized he had said too much, and fell face first onto the pillow again. Dennis, you're so good. Sonia sat down next to him and reached out to touch his thick hair, with caution, trying to tame this wild beast that always snapped at her, snarled. And now he froze, unable to resist any longer. Leave me alone, Dennis muttered. I will, but on one condition. If you go for a walk with me tomorrow in the city, remember, you promised? I remember. One meeting, nothing more. After that, you'll leave me alone. Deal. Finally, Sonia left the room. For an hour, Dennis listened to their chattering with Aunt Valia, who eagerly gave advice on which places in her hometown they should visit first. The same conversation resumed in the morning, as soon as she saw her nephew with a bruised, distant face in the kitchen. Valentina hurriedly set out plates of breakfast on the table, saying, Take Sonia to the park, to the rides, and you'll shake yourself up. Look, who have you become? Why are you forcing this Sonia on me? I don't like her, do you understand? Dennis snapped. Valentina was taken aback. For the first time, the cheerful, affectionate boy, her beloved nephew, used such a tone with her. He didn't say another word. Silently, he swallowed his tea, untouched the food, and left the table. To make sure Sonia didn't get lost, he had to meet her outside the entrance. She was dressed in a bright dress with an open back and had a whimsical hat on her head. Sonia walked slowly, stumbling in her heels. Obviously, she wore them to make an impression on Dennis, and soon enough the uncomfortable sandals rubbed her feet raw. I can't walk anymore, Sonia whimpered, leaning on his elbow. They stopped in the center of the park next to a fountain and sat on its edge. Without thinking twice, Sonia took off her sandals and dipped her feet into the cool water. A blissful smile appeared on her face.
It feels so good. I can't even compare this feeling to anything else. It's like... As Sonia struggled to find the words, Dennis looked off into the distance. And when he felt her hand touch his cheek, he snapped out of it. Sonia was reaching out to him, hoping for a kiss. "Give me the phone," Dennis dryly requested. Sonia furrowed her eyebrows. "What, again?" She suddenly pulled away, handed him the phone, and pouted in offense.
Dennis dialed Anya's number. She didn't answer for a long time, and when she finally picked up, she didn't say anything. The silence lasted for a few minutes. Dennis tried to hear Anya's breathing, but the sound of the fountain drowned out even his own breathing. Sonia couldn't stand it anymore, grabbed her phone and hung up. "Well, that's enough. My battery is dying," she said irritably. Sonia quickly put on her sandals and limped towards the exit. The tight straps were causing blisters on her feet. In unbearable pain, she limped silently and swallowed her tears. Dennis followed her. He heard Sonia sobbing, caught up to her, and casually took her elbow. "Why did you wear these ridiculous shoes?" he grumbled, squeezing her hand tightly. "To impress you," Sonia exclaimed despairingly. "And you don't even look at me. It's not going to work. You don't have to try. I love someone else." "I think you're just obsessed with her." Sonia abruptly stopped and stared at Dennis through tears. "You'll never get rid of this obsession. Don't call her. Don't breathe into the phone. Leave her alone. She made her choice." "I see you're an expert in this matter," Dennis smirked. "Not an expert, but I could help you. Help you forget her." "How? Will you hit me on the head with something heavy to erase my memory?" "There are other ways." Sonia's palm smoothly moved to his neck. Dennis felt her pulling him closer and tensed, resisting the pressure. "Listen, Sonia, just try it. What if?" she said softly, looking at him with innocent eyes. He carefully studied her face, trying to find even the slightest spark of desire within himself. It didn't work. Dennis leaned in, deliberately listening to his own sensations. He didn't believe that this would be a way to get rid of his feelings for Anya, but it was worth a try. Sonia visibly nervously fidgeted, revealing her inexperience. Her false bravery disappeared in an instant when Dennis, disregarding his principles, closed the distance and kissed her lips. The kiss felt unnatural and forced. His heart didn't skip a beat. He pulled away, frowned, and shook his head. "And how was it? Did you feel anything?" Sonia stuttered in a voice that wasn't her own. She looked at Dennis as if he were a god, enveloping him with a soft, mesmerized gaze. "Nothing. Emptiness," he ruthlessly dismissed Sonia. He wanted to provoke irritation so that she wouldn't cling to hope, but instead of disappointment, a blissful smile appeared on her face. "This is just the beginning," she said excitedly. Dennis grabbed her by the elbow and pulled her towards the exit. "This is the end. I tried, it didn't work. Understand?" He sternly looked at the girl, waited for her nod, and added for clarity, "Don't fantasize about something that doesn't exist." Dennis said a dry goodbye to Sonia near the entrance, and despite the puppy-like excitement in her eyes, reminded her that their meeting was the first and the last. He fulfilled his promise. Now it was her turn.